When the original MG ZS EV arrived towards the end of 2019, it set a new precedent for electric value. That 22.5 grand price tag was incredible, but that 163-mile range seemed a little bit meagre even at the time. Now we have a new long-range version of the MG ZS EV. As the name suggests, it's got a lot more range and a lot of other new features as well. But before we tell you about all those details, don't forget, if you enjoy this video, like, comment and subscribe. The profile and shape of the MG ZS EV hasn't changed. This is still a small SUV, but the fake front grille has been replaced by this textured but solid panel. The biggest change is under the bonnet, or more accurately the floor. The battery is now 72.6 kilowatt hours in capacity, where the original had 44.5 kilowatt hours. MG will also be releasing a new version of the standard range version with a slightly bigger battery, but that's not going to be released until next year. The other major addition is the iSmart app, which enables charging control and checking other aspects of vehicle status, including whether the alarm has been triggered. The trim names have been changed as well. Instead of the Excite and Exclusive, there is now the SE and Trophy. There's also a Connect version of the Trophy. The Trophy is £2,500 more than the SE, and adding the Connect facilities adds a further £500. All cars have MG Pilot, a 10.1-inch infotainment screen, and access to the new iSmart app. There's a 360-degree parking camera too. The Trophy adds wireless phone charging, heated leather style seats and a panoramic sunroof. There are rain sensing wipers too. The Trophy Connect, as you can guess from the name, adds live services to the iSmart system. These roof rails are only included on the Trophy too. The basic colour is white, but black, blue, grey and red are available, ranging in price from £545 to £695 for the red. It comes with 17-inch diamond cut alloys, and there are no other wheel options, whichever trim level you choose. Overall, the general look of this car hasn't changed an awful lot. It's still a fairly standard looking SUV. However, the headlights are now LED based and have daylight running characteristics. It might be only a minor facelift at the front, but it does lend that little bit of extra premium look. So this car does have keyless entry of sorts. You press this button to unlock it and open the door. Let's have a look inside. At first glance, the interior doesn't look hugely different with the long range compared to the original car. The SE uses fabric seats, but the Trophy cars use a leather-like finish instead. However, the infotainment screen is now a bit bigger and the dashboard display is digital, and some of the switchgear for the air conditioning is different too, but we'll get onto all that in a minute. These seats are really pretty comfortable. Now, this central console does make it feel a little bit kind of like enclosed, but that's not really a bad thing. There's a decent amount of headroom as well. You have standard electric controls for the driver's seat. However, the passenger seat is mechanical and there's no memory function for the driver's seat either. There are quite a lot of features here for storage, etc. Underneath this panel is a couple of cup holders, and then you have under here a small cubby. You get a couple of USB ports here. We rather like the fact that there is a Type A and a Type C, so whatever kind of cable you've got, you should be well catered for. You also get this 12-volt car power adapter as well. Always handy to have that available. But most importantly, joy of joys, you finally have a wireless phone adapter. Having a wireless phone charger is a significant upgrade. It's particularly great when you consider that the MG5 doesn't even have a clear place to put your phone. The glove compartment is what we'd probably call medium sized, enough space for 2, possibly 3 pairs of gloves, but 4 might be pushing it. So for that panoramic sunroof that comes with the Trophy Edition, you get 2 separate controls. This one's just for the blind, and this one is for the entire sunroof. And that dramatically increases the headroom. Although the window only goes halfway, the blind can be opened all the way, so there's a complete full-length panoramic roof. So these rear seats are also decently comfortable. There's a reasonable amount of headroom. The knee room is perhaps a little bit meagre, so I think if you're up to 6 feet, you'd probably be okay, but if you're over 6 feet, maybe it'll start to feel a little bit cramped. This central seat, however, is a little bit narrow, probably good for a kid, but not for an adult for long periods. If you don't have an adult here though, or any other person, you can drop this down to make an armrest, pop this forward, and you have a couple of cup holders inside. Not sure about this design, having this thing stick up like this though. Like the front area, you have 2 USB ports, and one is Type A, one Type C, and you've also got vents for the rear seat passengers as well. However, this car doesn't have multi-zone climate control. There are seat back pockets for your kids to put their copies of Confucius or whatever it is kids read these days. Both outside rear seats have ISOFIX points with the bit to connect to under here, but there doesn't appear to be anything on the front passenger seat. Rear boot capacity benefits a fair bit from this being a relatively high car. So this standard capacity is 470 litres, which is pretty generous and a lot more than a hatchback. You do get this space under here. Unfortunately that doesn't stay up on its own, so I'm going to have to hold it. And you see it's got plenty of room for, that's for the charging cable, there's the granny charger, you've got a tyre inflator kit. You've got these little bits of netting on the side, on both sides, and you could maybe put a couple of small dogs in there. Of course you can increase the capacity still further by dropping those rear seats down. You get these pull cables to drop the seats forward. You can see that one goes forward with a 40, and then you have this one which is 60, and this increases the boot size to 1100 litres. That's not actually as good as, for example, the MG5, which has 356 more litres of capacity in the boot. However, this car is at least rated for towing. It's only 500 kilograms, which isn't enough for you to be towing a caravan, but a kind of small trailer or maybe a bike rack on a trailer definitely would be within this car's capabilities. There is a bit of a lip for the boot, which some people might not like. It's not completely flat. Also, although there's no kind of major ridge, the boot does go up a fair bit. Having this slight angle on the boot could reduce your options because it's not entirely flat. Also, you probably have to hold this seatbelt out the way to put this rear seat back. These roof rails, which as we said before are only available with the trophy cars, have a weight capacity of 75 kilograms, which is the same as on the MG5. That's enough weight to hold any of my immediate family. As the name suggests, this long-range car has a lot more range than the original version. That only had 163 miles of WLTP range. There will be a new version of the standard range with 198 miles of range, but this long-range version takes that a lot further with 273 miles of range. That is 9 miles less than the Kia e-Niro 2 long range, but this car is £4,000 cheaper. They've also slightly changed where the charger port is. It's to one side, it's no longer underneath the MG logo. Now, with that 72.6 kilowatt hour battery, AC charging on a 7 kilowatt supply will take 10.5 hours. DC charging is also a little bit faster. While with 50 kilowatt DC charging, the car takes just over an hour to charge to 80%. If you can find a 100 kilowatt hour supply, it can do it in just 42 minutes. That's just 7 minutes more than the original car, which had a much smaller battery. Efficiency ranges from 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour to 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour in city driving. This equates to an average of 3.7p per mile if you can find a 14p per kilowatt hour supply. Now, we just mentioned that, although you can't find a 40p per kilowatt hour supply now, just so you've got a comparison with our previous reviews. Another new feature is that you can plug an adapter into here and get the same sort of vehicle to load capability of the Ioniq 5. It's rated up to 2,200 watts. That's not a huge amount of power, and maybe powering something like an electric heater might be pushing it, but it's enough for a hedge trimmer or maybe an inflator for inflatable beds when you're out camping. So it could be pretty useful. They didn't give us the adapter for that though, unfortunately. Let's have a look inside this bonnet. Well, absolutely huge amount of space in here, because obviously this car was built with petrol versions also still being in mind. We think it's a bit of a waste of space. They could have put a frunk in here, and we do wonder actually if in the future there might be some aftermarket third-party things that can give you a bit of frunk space here. We do like the fact you can directly access the battery, because sometimes, if you do leave these cars around for a long time, they can be hard to get into if that battery goes flat. So this steering wheel and the stalks look exactly the same as the original car, but there are some other aspects of the general controls that have been updated. There's still a separate start-stop button, just as before. The left-hand side of the steering wheel gives you media control buttons and the ability to operate your phone if attached via Bluetooth. On the right-hand side, you have more general controls for the menu system on the dashboard display and voice control activation. This left stalk is for controlling the lights. This right hand one is for the windscreen wipers, and there's a separate stalk on the left hand side for the cruise control, which is adaptive on all cars. This area of control hasn't changed from previous MGs. You have this rotating wheel. You can choose reverse, neutral, drive, and then park. You have these buttons at the top. This one changes between normal, eco and sport mode. KERS, posh name for regenerative braking. There's 3 modes of that. And we finally worked out what this does. If you press that, it will actually give you a display of the battery status on the media control display. Here we have a separate parking brake, but you don't need to use that. If you've pressed P, that will come on automatically, and you have control over the auto hold here as well. The basic configuration of the dashboard display is the same as before, but now it's entirely digital. On the left you have the speed, on the right you have the current power delivery and regeneration. There's a very small remaining range display down the bottom, and the central area is mostly taken up by ADAS information. These air conditioning control buttons have been considerably updated from the previous version. It's still nice to see that we've got discrete controls, but the actual design is a little bit less dowdy and old-fashioned, actually quite modern, and you can also get to more detailed controls, including things like the heated seats through the LCD panel. Speaking of that LCD panel, this is one area where this car has been massively updated over the previous version. You can see this, it looks a lot more modern the way they've laid it out. The layout is basically the same, with the kind of the way you've got the sat nav here, radio in the middle, and then some charging information and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on the left here, both of which are supported. However, you'll see it's quite a lot more responsive. So you hit the, if you've watched our previous video of the MG5 long range, that took ages to come up, and now it's super fast. As you can see, redesigned look as well, very responsive, adding an address to like, let's have a look, let's go to, see if we can go to Harrow here for a bit. Comes up quite quickly, much faster than before. Other options here, let's get rid of that by pressing that button down there. Looking at the music, you've got a DAB radio here. Now this is another new feature. If you get the Trophy Connect, you get a connection to Amazon Music. The basic one, if you click on this one here, you get an account that has advertisements in the middle of it. But if you actually have your own Amazon account, you can log in and it will sync your Amazon Music account with this one. So it's a bit like the way Teslas do Spotify. Pretty cool feature, although you're paying $500 extra for that alongside other features. Click on this button here, you get the access to all the different car controls. You can see that all the different ADAS aspects of MG Pilot, which we'll talk about a bit later in the review, are there. You can configure those. This is the ADAS capabilities of MG Pilot, which were already included with the MG5 long range, are all here, and that's a great upgrade. You can control this. There's one particular custom button that you can change through there. Auto high beams, another new feature with the latest MG cars, and some stuff about there you can get the VIN number of the car. We'll watch this in progress later in the video, but a nice 360-degree parking camera also available on all cars. The long range's battery is 58% larger than the original. Now that adds 100 kilograms of weight. However, the motor is also a little bit more powerful, 156 PS versus 143. MG is also calling it a second generation motor and claims it's a little bit smoother in delivery, and that's certainly what we found driving this car around. Overall performance is identical to the original model with 0 to 60 in 8.2 seconds. The top speed has gone up from 87 miles per hour to 108 miles per hour, though that's not that important in a country where the speed limit is 70. This car isn't as fast as the MG5, but it is on par with more powerful SUVs from the Volkswagen Group. We have to say that compared to the original car, despite a lot of it being the same, it does feel that little bit of a step up in terms of handling and performance. It just delivers that power slightly more smoothly, and it just feels a little bit more intuitive. As we said, these seats are pretty comfortable, and since you're sitting quite high up, the road position and visibility is also very, very good. One thing you're always aware of though with any SUV in London is just how big it is with these narrow London streets, and this isn't even that big an SUV. The steering is still a little bit soft compared to some of the SUVs that we've driven, like for example the dual motor version of the Audi Q4 or the Ioniq 5. However, that's not really the market this car is in. If you're just driving this car around town, it's perfectly adequate, and it also sits pretty comfortably at motorway speeds as well. MG has upped its safety tech with its latest cars, mostly revolving around MG Pilot, which is included on all trim levels of this car. This includes active emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, although it doesn't say anything about small cats. There is also lane departure warning and keep assist. The original MG ZS already had some basic cruise control, but this is now adaptive, and that also includes stop-start in traffic. There's also intelligent high beam assistance, useful for those dark country roads, and we showed you that functions through those new LED headlamps. The trophy cars add blind spot detection and lane change assistance. They also add rear cross traffic alert, which is useful if you're backing into a busy road. The 360-degree reversing camera is available on all cars, but we'll come back to that in a minute. As with the MG5, it's great to see MG up its safety game with the MG ZS EV too. This was an area where MG was behind, but they've now mostly caught up with the competition. The original MG ZS EV already had a 5-star Euro NCAP rating, so presumably that will carry forward to this new car. When the original MG ZS EV launched in 2019, it was the biggest electric bargain on the market, and the new long range is also incredibly good value. The basic car starts at $28,500, and the trophy car is a fiver below $31,000, and then you add another $500 on top of that if you want the Trophy Connect. However, MG also claims that the residual values on these cars, particularly the SE, is much higher than the previous model, and that will have a really beneficial effect on leasing prices, because obviously the higher the value the car is at the end of a leasing period, the less the payments will be during your leasing period. The Kia e-Niro 2 long range and the 64 kilowatt-hour premium version of the Hyundai Kona are actually only £500 more than the Trophy Connect version of this car. You do get a bit more kit with this car, but then you also get a bit more range with the Korean options. Warranties are also on a par with the Korean cars though, with a basic warranty being 7 years or 80,000 miles. This includes the battery, but MG doesn't state the percentage. The original MG ZS was in a frugal Group 21 for insurance, but the groups for this car haven't been announced yet. Let's take a look at that 360-degree parking camera. You can see quite a clear view of the space behind the car, a decent smaller view of the overview of the car, and some sensor information on the right. Overall, this is a pretty good implementation. Another thing you don't get with those Korean cars for £500 more is a panoramic sunroof. The original MG ZS EV set a benchmark for electric value. This new long-range version doesn't quite perform the same feat because it has the MG5 to contend with. But the SE version certainly delivers the most range available for under £30,000, making it incredible value. The two trophy cars provide a lot of kit for the money too. This is another incredibly priced car from MG that also raises the bar that little bit further on quality. We can't wait to see what MG does next. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.